So, good morning again to everyone. I don't know about your neck of the woods, but we're having rain again. You know, West Texas is like at an attic. It's all or nothing. We have no rain or we flood, one or the other. So we're having lots of rain, and I feel blessed. I'm sitting here looking at all that greenery outside, and it's beautiful. So we're going to be talking about abstinence today, and got some long-term people on here, and some that are new to the program, and some that's kind of in the middle phases of recovery. And I hope we can have a. That's not my friend Kent Fisher, is it? No, no. Anyway, so we want to talk about abstinence. And I would like to get your ideas and your thoughts about it. You know, in the drug alcohol field, there are two points of view, thoughts. There's two completely different points of, well, I can't even talk this morning. Two different points of view. One is the abstinent model, and what that means is, you know, if you're a drug addict alcoholic, you don't use drugs, you don't drink the drug alcohol. That is the 12-step AA philosophy, and that's what I have been taught, and that's what I've used in my own personal life and with my clients. And there is, and I'm open, I want all of you to hear, I'm open to whatever works for a person. I don't know much about this other model, but there's a lot of information, there's a lot of kind of talking about it, and it's called the harm reduction model. Raise your hand if any of you have heard of it. Harm reduction model. Harm reduction. Okay, I see Joseph raised his hand. Okay, so what it is, it's, and I'm just going to read their statement, is minimizing, let me put these glasses on, minimizing injury to self, others, in the community is what harm reduction is. It was actually started in Europe in the 1980s when HIV was, you know, rapid, and what they set up was giving away clean needles. They were helping people stay as safe as they could. And so this harm reduction program actually came out of that. Now, I want to say, and what this means is that you have a medical model. I guess it's medical. I don't even, it's in essence, you can use a substance in proportions, you know, like you would taking medication. And so through this HIV problem in the 80s in Europe, they thought about using it with heroin addicts. And so that's where this harm reduction started, where they couldn't get many heroin addicts completely clean. And so they started administering dosage of heroin and for free, and clean needles and all of that. So that has grown, and it's a movement here in the United States that some people, there are treatment centers today, I looked up several of them, there are treatment centers who believe in that model. Now, my brain would have to do a lot of shifting to, I mean, you can tell I'm stammering about it. I mean, it's hard for me to even talk about it for fear. Now, I know that what I say is not powerful enough to make you go relapse over it, but I even have a concern about talking about it a whole lot for fear that some drug addict, alcoholic that has been absent for a while will say, oh, well, now Tennie is saying that we can use, socially or whatever. I am not saying that. I am saying I am ignorant about this new approach. But it's something that we're going to have to be talking about, because it's pretty much it's not all over the field, but people are talking about it a lot in the addiction field. And like I said, there are treatment centers who use this model, and they claim about as high a recovery rate as those of us who use the Abstinent model. So where do they come up with the numbers? I don't know. That is a whole nother discussion that could take, a lot of time. But I just wanted to kind of introduce that to you, that thought, and see what your thoughts are. Have you ever heard of it, And then what I was thinking this morning is the reason I'm started talking about this is I have a friend that is in the field, and he works internationally, and he's really looking at this model and, was encouraging me to look at it. I'm looking at it. It has not changed my belief system, but I'm open to whatever works for individuals. Now, what I can see is people that are on opiates or people that are severe drug addicts, and that that have been in and out of treatment and relapse on the way out the door. I can see the possibility where that program might work for them. And it's already being used, like in the methadone clinics, and there's different medication that they're giving people that will substitute. Instead of opiates, they will give them different medication that is similar to opiates. But so I'm just going to kind of leave all of that with y'all to think about. Does it create an opening in your brain for abstinence? And say, I can't see it for alcohol at all, but I might be open to seeing it for severe drug addicts. But anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that, because the abstinent model works. It works. And it's real cut and dried for alcoholics and drug addicts if you use the abstinent model. And what that means is no drugs and no alcohol. I mean, it's that simple. And so what we teach here, and what the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous teaches, is the substance. Just when you give up the substance, it just gets you to the starting gate. Yes, the substance and, the abuse of a substance and the behavior, that comes from the abuse of a substance, that it will get you in jail, it'll get you in prison, it will get you a divorce, it will, cause all kinds of havoc in family systems and all of that. But just to stop using, all that means is you got one angry person on your hands. So what we believe in, and what the 12 Steps believes in, is that it's a much deeper problem. It's, and here it shows we really get to the core of the problem. What is the problem? For most of us, it starts in childhood. And it's not about making parents bad or wrong, but a lot of them were bad and wrong. And some of us got bad parenting, and, if you grew up in alcoholism, there's a good chance that you have that brain chemistry. So when people get upset and they use a substance, it changes the way they feel. It does, alcohol and drugs does not change the way a normal person and I don't know very many normal people, it doesn't do for them what it does for the brain of an addict. And, what we call normies, they may drink a drink or two, they may even get drunk a time or two. But they, at the end of the day, they'll think, this is not worth it. I don't even like feeling like this. And they will give it up, or maybe drink socially, maybe a glass of wine occasionally. But addicts, alcoholics, one's too many and 1,000's not enough. It sets up, I believe, one drink sets up the craving, and so once you put that one drink in your system, then it calls for 2 and 3, and you go on until you're falling down drunk, either in jail or whatever. So we believe in the abstinent model, and I'm going to keep saying this till I'm wearing it out. I'm open to looking at the harm reduction. This is kind of off the topic, but I was, several days ago, was in a place of business, and this woman came up to me, and she had a mask. She was working there, and she had a mask on, but I instantly knew who she was. I instantly knew who she was. Tears came to her eyes, and she's probably in her middle 50s. And she was one of my very first clients at the Serenity House. We didn't even treat teenagers, but we had no place to send someone like her. This was in the early days when kids started huffing paint. We knew nothing about it. And they didn't know what to do with this young woman, and they brought her to us at the Serenity House. She was pretty much a vegetable. She was like in a child state, and she, I'm kind of a mother figure for a lot of people, but anyway, I was her safe person. And for months, she sat at my feet and put her arm, I was practically dragging her through the center, but she just kind of clamped onto me because for some reason I felt safe to her. But we didn't know what to do for her. We did not know what to do for her. The huffing of the paint fumes we thought had done so much brain damage that there'd be a possibility that she'd never come back. Of course, our recommendation going forward was for her to never use any type of drug or alcohol. And of course, as she got older, she did, and she got into a lot of problems with that. Long story short, she's in her 50s, she's clean and sober, and for that particular woman, and I've seen thousands like this. I don't think she could use a little bit of drugs or drink a little bit of the drug alcohol. I don't know. But when I saw her, and I've seen her one time in between because I had called somebody in the paper to do some yard work for me, and these two people showed up, and she happened to be one of them. So I saw her maybe 20 years ago. I'm just saying, pointing out with her, that had she kept doing what she was doing, huffing the paint or whatever drug she went to, if she kept doing that, even on a part-time basis, she would not be alive today. So I'm just throwing that out there. It really touched my heart to see her a productive citizen of our town and having a job and working, and she's in her 50s. That's what sobriety does. That's what abstinence does. So I'm going to kind of leave this. There is a growing epidemic with opiates. And if y'all work in the field or know anyone that's an opiate addict, it's hard to get off of it. It's hard to stay off. Now there's good, I don't have any affiliation with any of them other than I've had friends that have worked in methadone clinics. And the methadone clinics, if the clients there will take the advice of the counselors there and do other forms of treatment along with the methadone, they can work and can function and hold down a job, but many of them won't. They won't go to the program, they won't get a sponsor, they won't see counselors. All they want is that drug, that methadone. Some clinics open at 6 o'clock in the morning, and those addicts may not show up at work on time, but you can count they'll be there at 6 o'clock in the morning to pick up that methadone shot. So I'm just putting that out there for y'all to think about, because we're going to hear more about this model, this harm reduction model. And they're going to be asking for lots of money from the federal government for it. So I don't know. I'm just thinking about that. Let's go on to other addictions. When we talk about eating disorders, and not everyone in the field believes that eating disorders are addictions. I do. I'm recovering from compulsive overeating and bulimia, and I believe 1,000% that it goes through the exact same addiction process as drugs and alcohol. what that process is that we have some feelings to come up, or I would have some feelings to come up that I didn't know how to deal with. I'd get angry. The only way I knew how to deal with anger was to rage. I'd get sad. I'd feel sorry for myself. I'd have pain. I'd have anger. And my brain would tell me, and it started telling me at age 4, I know how you can feel better. Go eat something. And so I did that so many times that I ate myself up to 287 pounds. And what you do, there's a feeling. You feel bad. Or you can feel really good. And, that anxiety will come up. You don't know what to do with yourself. And that brain, that our brain has that sense of ease and comfort. It remembers how it feels when you put a substance in your body. And so, I'd have a feeling to come up, wouldn't know what to do about the situation. My brain would say, go eat something. Go eat something. And it wouldn't be a little something. I was a volume eater. It would take a bunch of it. It wouldn't be just a little something. It'd be a bunch of it. I'd have to put that food in, and I'd have to put it in real fast. And then I would get that sense of ease and comfort. I would feel better. Addicts are not idiots. If we didn't get something out of using a substance, we'd give it up in a heartbeat. But it works for folks like us. And it worked for me until it didn't. And so that addiction cycle, you have a feeling, the brain tells you to use, you use, and then for a short period of time, you feel better. We feel better as addicts when we use a substance. You addicts out there, shake your head if you agree with me. When you use a substance, if you feel bad and you use a substance, does it make you feel better? Shake your head yes if you agree. So we have a short mirror of time to where we feel better. We get some relief. And then immediately we get into the guilt and remorse. And we think, there I go again. I've promised myself this morning I wouldn't do that. And here I am back at it, 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'm back at overeating, drinking, drugging, whatever your drug of choice is. I'm talking about food right now. But, after you feel good, and then that, guilt and remorse sets in, and then we do that theme song that every addict has. Every addict that I've ever talked to, when they get into that guilt and remorse, will say, well, I'm never going to do that again. And we mean it. We mean it beyond any doubt. I'm not going to do that again. And we don't until the feelings come back. And that's why that addiction cycle has to be broken. And that's where the 12-step program helps break that cycle. And then we also believe the 12-step program is a spiritual program. And this is where a lot of folks in this harm reduction category, and I'm not putting anything down, I'm for whatever works for people, but a lot of them, some of them, that go to other types of ways to recover, do it because they don't like the spiritual part of the 12 steps. They don't like the God part. They call it religion. Well, they don't know much about it, or they would not call it a religious program. It is nobody's religious program. It is a spiritual program based on, we got the information from a little psychiatrist, and he wasn't even an alcoholic, Dr. Carl Young. He is the one, after working with alcoholics for years without any success, finally got it that he didn't think an addict of any sort could recover without having a complete psychic change brought about through a spiritual experience. So that's what the 12 steps are based on. It's a complete psychic change in our brain that is brought about by us using the spiritual principles of the program. And we don't use them one time, we use them every day, every day, every day, every day, every day, every day. You can say every day one more time. So, we're talking about abstinence then for food. It is different, and there are as many different ways to find abstinence with food and eating disorders as there are people. And you call up any treatment center, and everyone, I mean, not everyone, there may be some similarities, but most of the time, majority of them, and I'm for anything that works for people. Majority of your eating disorder units want to, and if they can do this, more power to them. They want to have, for people to become normal eaters. And so they start out, having them to eat sugar or whatever's on their buffet line, And if that works for them, that's great. That's great. We have a different philosophy here in that, and I will tell you, I have no idea what people can eat and what they can't eat. That your brain and your body will tell you. And what we do here at Shades, we call our food plan a detoxifying food plan. And I'll tell you, we put our drug addicts and alcoholics on it, and what they report is that their brains are clearer, that they have more energy, that their memory is coming back. And I will promise you, if we brought the drug addicts, alcoholics in here, I'm not talking about the eating disorder people, I'm talking about straight addicts, alcoholics. And if we let them eat, and a lot of treatment centers do this, massive amounts of sugar, caffeine, whatever they wanted to eat, their brain would still be foggy. I worked in that type of model for many years, and we would see that. We didn't have a lot of money, and so there's bakery here to abstinence for eating disorders. The OA model of abstinence, I'm going to read you what that is. It is, simply said, is the action of refraining from compulsive eating and compulsive food behavior while working toward or maintaining a healthy body weight. And what we're working on is spiritual, emotional, and physical recovery is the result of living this plan of action. So, when we look at an eating disorder person, yes, the compulsive overeating has to stop. I mean, if you're going to recover, you're going to have to stop eating compulsively. And you need to look at what you're eating, what type of food you're eating. Now, like I said, I can't tell people if they're allergic to sugar, and what I'm talking about allergic is if you eat something with sugar and you want more of it, you might have a sugar allergy. I don't know, or a sensitivity. It may set up, it may set you up to want more, is the whole thing. The guideline for anything, any substance at all, is if you can take it or leave it. If you can eat a cookie or 2 cookies, a serving, and walk away and leave the rest of them in your cabinet and not think about them, that's the key. Not think about them and go down the road. But see, addicts have something, and I don't know this harm reduction, if they're even addressing this. What I believe addicts have that normies don't have is that mental obsession. I think that's what makes us different, is that mental obsession, that idea that overcomes all other ideas. I would swear off of overeating and eating certain foods. I do it every Sunday night. I was going to start over Monday morning after every birthday, after Christmas, after New Year's, after, and that time never came around, And so, eating disorder people have to define their own abstinence, and what that looks like is different from, for different people. But one thing that I'd encourage people to do, like I said here, we what we give people is the freshest food that we can buy. This is the middle of West Texas, and we can't always buy the freshest food in the world. But anyway, we buy good quality food. If you doubt that, you need to look at our grocery bill. We spend a lot. That is our biggest expense here, is the groceries. And so, we serve good food, and we have, Misty Hawk is the Director of Food Services, and I've always had a knowing that you don't have to serve like institutionalized food to people for it to be healthy food. I knew you could take food and make it taste good, and people could lose weight if they needed to lose weight on it. They could gain weight if they needed to gain weight. And Misty has proven that by doing spices. I mean, our food is good. If any of you have ever had an opportunity to eat any of Misty's cooking, you probably will agree she's a fabulous cook, but she's taken those recipes and been able to, embellish, not to embellish, but use just a healthy, spices and herbs and all to make the food taste good. Food does not have to taste bad in order to be healthy. So for your compulsive overeaters, we recommend 3 meals a day, nothing in between. We really are big on eating by the clock, 8 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 5 o'clock. And if you need to adjust that, but feed yourself like you would a baby every 4 hours. And then in the middle of that time period, if you feel hungry, if you are on the meal plan that we have here, or on a healthy meal plan where you're getting enough to eat, a lot of your compulsive overeaters or morbidly obese people suffer from malnutrition. And they may weigh 400 pounds, but how they suffer from malnutrition is what they eat, what they put into their bodies. Here, everything that they eat here does something to enrich the body. It's fuel for their body. So if you eat enough breakfast to feed yourself enough in the morning, by 10 o'clock, if you're feeling hungry, you can count on it. It's emotional hunger. It is not about the food. There's something going on in your life that you are missing. Maybe you need to hear I love you. Maybe you need a hug. Maybe you need companionship. Maybe what's missing in your life that the food is taking its place. This does not take a rocket scientist to figure this out. And so when you give up the food, you're going to have to fill that time with something other than food and staying barricaded in your house like we've had to be on account of the pandemic. But it's about, doing service work. It's about doing something to get out of ourselves. Any addiction is about self-centeredness. It's all about ourselves. If you want to know what the problem is, go look in the mirror and say, good morning, problem. We are our problem. It's not your mother, your mother-in-law, your dad, the people down the street, our country, the president. It's none of that. Now, a lot of them have their own problems, but we are our problem. And so if you overeat, or you starve yourself, or you binge and purge over your pain and feelings, when you stop that, you're going to have to find, you don't take away one behavior without replacing it with another one. When you take away that food behavior, you're going to have to fill that void up with something else. And I'm sitting here looking at Bonnie with that. She's just writing notes, and she's got on that pretty blue. And what Bonnie, if she was to talk right now, what she would share is she works one of the best, it's the program, but she works the program to an extent of just about as good or better than anybody I've ever known. And what she'll say in a minute, she writes gratitude lists, she sponsors people, she goes to meetings. Those are the things that you do to take place of the addiction behavior, So that's why the 12 steps and the fellowship work so good. All right, so abstinence from food and eating disorders, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out, but for anorexics, it's very difficult to treat an anorexic because, for one thing, the more weight they lose, the larger the denial is. When the thinner they get, very few realize that they're in a dangerous situation. They think that we make it up or whatever, their families, So for an anorexic, you know, abstinence for an anorexic, that's a kind of a tricky word to use with an anorexic, but the abstinence is refeed yourself. If you're an anorexic, it's go through the refeeding process. And here at Shades, we have refed a lot of it, and it's a slow process. You cannot take it fast or you'll damage the person. It's a slow, gradual. It's not so much about the weight gain. It is about getting substance into their body so their brain will function. And so an anorexic has to develop a plan of action for a meal plan, just like a compulsive overeater does. And it's important for an anorexic to feed themselves in a timely manner. Now, some of you that are on here are kind of acting bored, some of my compulsive overeaters, but I want to tell you something. Compulsive overeaters, I have seen them go from being a 300-pound compulsive overeater and get a hold of a meal plan and start losing and feeling good and getting the praise and the compliments and go all the way over to the anorexic side. We haven't seen it a lot, but we have seen it some. That is more natural than for the anorexic to go the other way into compulsive overeating. We have seen compulsive overeaters get into anorexia. This is why it's not a one and done. This is about treating addictions and eating disorders every day, day in and day out. And then abstinence for bulimic does not take a rocket scientist to figure this one out. That is, eat 3 meals a day, and it's the binging. Now, majority of your bulimics they'll eat meals and then their disease looks different. Like majority of your bulimics will have a secret time that they buy food in massive amounts of it and will go somewhere alone where they will binge, take in thousands of calories in a short period of time and then purge them up. And so they get 2 hits off of it. Like, you know, when you take in that many calories, it just gives you that sense of ease and comfort. Like the compulsive overeater, you know, you just put that food in there and it just feels so good for a minute. But for a bulimic, then that fear comes up of gaining the weight, and it's like, oh my God, I've got to get this out of my body. And so they will find a way. I'm acting like I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm a recovered bulimic, and you got to get the food out quick. And so the result, what we bulimics really get addicted to is the release of getting rid of the food. When you get that release, you feel clean, and it's just the best feeling in the world, and that brain gets addicted to that feeling. But I want to tell you, it lasts for only a few seconds or minutes, because immediately then you get to beating yourself up. Oh my God, I've done it again. Bulimia is the most down and dirty of the eating disorders. It's very costly, and it is very shaming. We shame ourselves about it. And so, abstinence for a bulimic is no purging, binging and purging. Now, I will tell you, if I was working with someone on an outpatient basis, and they came to me and there was no way that they could come into inpatient treatment, what I would work with them on is, if they were purging 10 times a day, I would have them to document the binge and the purge, and be willing to look at cutting down, maybe 2 a day, 3 a day. And, this is on an outpatient basis, not an inpatient. This is why I don't believe many eating disorder people can. I think eating disorder people need a detox plan and a time as well, if not more so than drug addicts and alcoholics. I think they need to be detoxed from the drug, and then that's when the hard work starts. So, recovery or abstinence for compulsive overeaters is have a meal plan, eat 3 meals a day. If your body works better with a snack in between, go for that. But for me, as a compulsive overeater, I couldn't do that. And I stayed really on the same meal plan that I came home from treatment with. I had to add back some because it was so low. I mean, it was too low. I couldn't hardly function. But I worked with a sponsor. Anyway, I stayed on that same meal plan. Really, I didn't vary from it until maybe about 10, 11 years ago. And it just becomes a working part of the mind and body. And I haven't varied through it, varied from it much. But, even the Big Book talks about how we will reach a place of neutrality. In recovery, the food's going to take its proper place. You're not going to have to white knuckle it, but you need to be aware all the time of what, immediately we could switch over and get back into the overeating or the binging, purging, and the restriction. So that's eating disorders. I'll tell you, on the process addictions like sex addiction, and this is all I'm really going to talk about, sex addiction, shopping, and work addiction. Those are three that are very hard to treat because God gave us, made our bodies that we are sexual human beings. That's how He made us. And then, the shopping, you have to do some form of shopping. We do not live in the days that we go out and hunt and gather our food. So you've got to do some kind of shopping to bring in goods to your home. And then work addicts, it's a hard addiction to find abstinence in, but it is possible in all three of them. And, for all three, this is my philosophy, folks, is get some detox in every one of them. Like, for instance, in most of your people who work in the sex addiction field will, particularly an inpatient, which is wonderful if they can go to inpatient, is get them abstinent from all sexual behavior, for just kind of like the food. Get them abstinent first. And then see, because those normal instincts are there. It's what we do with those instincts that make us so sick, in the sex addiction. And so this is where SA is, Sex Addicts Anonymous is so good, because you get a sponsor and they will help you find a bottom line in what your abstinence is. And everyone's abstinence looks different in sex addiction. But I believe everyone has to go through a period of detox. And that means, give it, free of any sexual acting out. That could be a week, 2 weeks, a month. I don't know what that might look like, but your therapist or your treatment team would, and a good sponsor in SA. And then on the shopping, people get in, bad trouble with the shopping and when it's connected to the debting. And so Debtors Anonymous, if any of y'all have ever done Debtors Anonymous, it is a serious program. They double team you. You have two sponsors and Debtors Anonymous, because when you get into people's sex life and into their pocketbook, that is when they close off. They do not want you talking about their sex life or their money. And so both of those are hard addictions to treat and to really get honest in. And those, if you are multi-addicted, if you're an alcoholic and you don't treat and you might have some kind of an eating problem, and you might have a sex problem, and you might have, spending problem. If you don't address all of the addictions, it'll take you back to your primary. I've seen it over and over and over again. So, and then, work addiction is, it starts out very gratifying to overwork, and, you make money, but after a while, a work addict, it's not about the money. I know work addiction came as close to killing me as my eating disorder ever did, because I couldn't get fulfilled enough, and I would overdo and overdo and overdo, and alcoholics have blackouts work addicts have what we call brownouts, like the whole, it would look like, I live in West Texas and was raised in far West Texas where we had bad old sandstorms. And that's kind of what it is for a work addict. They live in colors of brown. It's like they can't see anything through the haze, and they're tired from overworking, but they cannot stop the overworking. And so all of these are life that we have to work to make ourselves a living. Everyone's has some kind of sexual feelings, and we all have to eat. So those types of process addictions are hard to treat, but there's thousands of people that have recovered from them. And each one's abstinence might look different. There's not a clean cut abstinence for process addictions. My belief is get them off of everything for a while. Detox them from everything. That's why we treat all addictions. Get them off of everything so you can see what you have. A lot of times we don't even know what we're trying to treat. If we continue to let them smoke or practice any addiction, you don't know what you've got. So that's our philosophy here at Shades, is the Abstinent Model. I'm going to close this with saying, because I've probably just worn this out, that I'm open to anything that will help an addict, and I'm open to doing more research on this harm reduction, and I think it probably could help the people more that are like severe street drug addicts, maybe you're opiate addicts. I don't know, but I'm open to learning more about it. And so let's open it up, because I've got some seasoned people on here. I'd like to hear your opinions about the different types, the abstinence model and the harm reduction model. Do you believe in it? Do you think it could work? Some of you have family members that are addicts. Some of you are addicts yourself. Some of you are in long recovery. Some of you are in middle stages. So let's open it up. You can ask questions. I don't know if I'll have many answers, but let's all talk about it together. So who would like to start? And there's a woman on here I know that has a friend that is dying from drug addiction. And so it's hard to sit back as a friend and a family member to watch someone die of addiction. So in that, maybe this model of harm reduction would help someone like that. I don't know. So let's open it up. Y'all ask questions. Give me your opinion. Who would like to start? I'm going to ask if Bonnie will start first. Bonnie, will you share with us?